of How to Succeed, or Stepping Stones to Fame and Fortune. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. How to Succeed, or Stepping Stones to Fame and Fortune, by Orison Swett Marden. Chapter 17. Stick. Patience is the courage of the conqueror. It is the virtue par excellence of man against destiny, of the one against the world, and of the soul against matter. Therefore, this is the courage of the gospel, and its importance in a social view, its importance to races and institutions, cannot be too earnestly inculcated. Bulwer. Perpetual pushing and assurance put a difficulty out of countenance, and make a seeming impossibility give way. Jeremy Collier. To bear is to conquer fate. Campbell. The nerve that never relaxes, the eye that never blenches, the thought that never wanders, these are the masters of victory. Burke. Let us then be up and doing, with a heart for any fate, still achieving, still pursuing, learn to labor and to wait. Longfellow. How long did it take you to learn to play? Asked a young man of Gerardini. 12 hours a day for 20 years, replied the great violinist. Layman Beecher's father, when asked how long it took him to write his celebrated sermon on the government of God, replied, about 40 years. If you will study a year, I will teach you to sing well, said an Italian music teacher to a pupil who wished to know what can be hoped for with study. If 2 years, you may excel. If you will practice the scale constantly for 3 years, I will make you the best tenor in Italy. If for 4 years, you may have the world at your feet. Perceiving that Caffarelli had a fine tenor voice and unusual talent, a teacher offered to give him a thorough musical education free of charge, provided the pupil would promise never to complain of the course of instruction given. The first year, the master gave nothing but the scales, compelling the youth to practice them over and over again. The second year, it was the same. The third, and the fourth, the conditions of the bargain being the only reply to any question in relation to a change from such monotonous drill. The fifth year, the teacher introduced chromatics and thorough bass, and at its close, when Caffarelli looked for something more brilliant and interesting, the master said, "Go, my son, I can teach you nothing more. You are the first singer of Italy and of the world." The mastery of scales and diatonics gave him power to sing anything. "Keep at the helm," said President Porter. "Steer your own ship, and remember that the great art of commanding is to take a fair share of the work. Strike out, assume your own position. Put potatoes in a cart over a rough road, and the small ones go to the bottom." "Never depend upon your genius," said John Ruskin in the words of Joshua Reynolds. "If you have talent, industry will improve it. If you have none, industry will supply the deficiency." "The only merit to which I lay claim," said Hugh Miller, "is that of patient research, a merit in which whoever wills may rival or surpass me. And this humble faculty of patience, when rightly developed, may lead to more extraordinary development of ideas than even genius itself." Titian, the greatest master of color the world has seen, used to say, "White, red, and black These are all the colors that a painter needs, but he must know how to use them. It took 50 years of constant hard practice to bring him to his full mastery. "How much grows everywhere if we do but wait," exclaims Carlyle. "Not a difficulty but can transfigure itself into a triumph. Not even a deformity, but if our own soul have imprinted worth on it, will grow dear to us." Persistency is characteristic of all men who have accomplished anything great. They may lack in some other particular, have many weaknesses or eccentricities, but the quality of persistence is never absent in a successful man. No matter what opposition he meets, or what discouragements overtake him, he is always persistent. Drudgery cannot disgust him. Obstacles cannot discourage him. Labor cannot weary him. He will persist, no matter what comes or what goes. It is a part of his nature. He could almost as easily stop breathing. It is not so much brilliancy of intellect or fertility of resource as persistency of effort, constancy of purpose that makes a great man. Persistency always gives confidence. Everybody believes in the man who persists. He may meet misfortunes, sorrows, and reverses, but everybody believes that he will ultimately triumph because they know there is no keeping him down. Does he keep at it? Is he persistent? Is the question which the world asks of a man. Even the man with small ability will often succeed if he has the quality of persistence, where a genius without persistence would fail. "How hard I worked at that tremendous shorthand, and all improvement appertaining to it," said Dickens. I will only add to what I have already written of my perseverance at this time of my life, and of a patient and continuous energy which then began to be matured within me, and which I know to be the strong point of my character, if it have any strength at all, that there, on looking back, I find the source of my success. "I am sorry to say that I don't think this is in your line," said Woodfall the reporter, after Sheridan had made his first speech in Parliament. "You had better have stuck to your former pursuits." With his head on his hand, Sheridan mused for a time, then looked up and said, "It is in me, and it shall come out of me." From the same man came that harangue against Warren Hastings, which the orator Fox called the best speech ever made in the House of Commons. "The man who is perpetually hesitating which of two things he will do first," said William Wirt, "will do neither. The man who resolves, but suffers his resolution to be changed by the first counter-suggestion of a friend, who fluctuates from opinion to opinion, from plan to plan, and veers like a weathercock to every point of the compass, with every breath of caprice that blows, can never accomplish anything great or useful. Instead of being progressive in anything, he will be at best stationary, and more probably retrograde in all. Great writers have ever been noted for their tenacity of purpose. Their works have not been flung off from minds aglow with genius, but have been elaborated and elaborated into grace and beauty, until every trace of their efforts has been obliterated. Bishop Butler worked 20 years incessantly on his Analogy, and even then was so dissatisfied that he wanted to burn it. Rousseau says he obtained the ease and grace of his style only by ceaseless inquietude, by endless botches and erasures. Virgil worked 11 years on the Aeneid. The notebooks of great men like Hawthorne and Emerson are telltales of enormous drudgery, of the years put into a book which may be read in an hour. Montesquieu was 25 years writing his Esprit de Loi, yet you can read it in 60 minutes. Adam Smith spent 10 years on his Wealth of Nations. A rival playwright once laughed at Euripides for spending 3 days on 3 lines, when he had written 500 lines. But your 500 lines in 3 days will be dead and forgotten, while my 3 lines will live forever, replied Euripides. Sir Fowell Buxton thought he could do as well as others if he devoted twice as much time and labor as they did. Ordinary means and extraordinary application have done most of the great things in the world. Defoe offered the manuscript of Robinson Crusoe to many booksellers, and all but one refused it. Addison's first play, Rosamond, was hissed off the stage, but the editor of The Spectator and Tatler was made of stern stuff, and was determined that the world should listen to him, and it did. David Livingstone said, "Those who have never carried a book through the press can form no idea of the amount of toil it involves. The process has increased my respect for authors 1,000-fold. I think I would rather cross the African continent again than undertake to write another book." For the statistics of the Negro population of South America alone, says Robert Dale Owen, I examined more than 150 volumes. Another author tells us that he wrote paragraphs and whole pages of his book as many as 50 times. It is said of one of Longfellow's poems that it was written in 4 weeks, but that he spent 6 months in correcting and cutting it down. Bulwer declared that he had written some of his briefer productions as many as 8 or 9 times before their publication. One of Tennyson's pieces was rewritten 50 times. John Owen was 20 years on his commentary on the Epistle to the Hebrews, Gibbon on his Decline and Fall 20 years, and Adam Clarke on his commentary 26 years. Carlyle spent 15 years on his Frederick the Great. A great deal of time is consumed in reading before some books are prepared. George Eliot read 1,000 books before she wrote Daniel Deronda. Allison read 2,000 before he completed his history. It is said of another that he read 20,000 and wrote only 2 books. Virgil spent several years on the Georgics, which could be printed in 2 columns of an ordinary newspaper. Generally speaking, said Sidney Smith, the life of all truly great men has been a life of intense and incessant labor. They have commonly passed the first half of life in the gross darkness of indigent humility, overlooked, mistaken, condemned by weaker men, thinking while others slept, reading while others rioted, feeling something within them that told them that they should not always be kept down among the dregs of the world. And then, when their time has come, and some little accident has given them their first occasion, they have burst out into the light and glory of public life, rich with the spoils of time, and mighty in all the labors and struggles of the mind. Malibran said, "If I neglect my practice a day, I see the difference in my execution. If for 2 days, my friends see it. And if for a week, all the world knows my failure." Constant, persistent struggle she found to be the price of her marvelous power. "If I am building a mountain," said Confucius, "and stop before the last basketful of earth is placed on the summit, I have failed." "Young gentlemen," said Francis Wayland, "remember that nothing can stand day's work." America will never produce any great art until our resources are developed and we get more time. As a people, we have not yet learned the art of patience. We do not know how to wait. Think of an American artist spending 7, 8, 10, and even 12 years on a single painting, as did Titian, Michelangelo, and many of the other old masters. Think of an American sculptor spending years and years on a single masterpiece, as did the Greeks and Romans. We have not yet learned the secret of working and waiting. The single element in all the progressive movements of my pencil, said the great David Wilkie, was persevering industry. The kind of ability which most men rank highest is that which enables its possessor to do what he undertakes and attain the object of his ambition or desire. The reader of a newspaper does not see the first insertion of an ordinary advertisement, says a French writer. The second insertion he sees but does not read. The third insertion he reads. The fourth insertion he looks at the price. The fifth insertion he speaks of it to his wife. The sixth insertion he is ready to purchase. And the seventh insertion he purchases. The large fees which make us envy the great lawyer or doctor are not remuneration for the few minutes' labor of giving advice, but for the mental stores gathered during the precious spare moments of many a year while others were sleeping or enjoying holidays. A client will frequently object to paying $50 for an opinion written in 5 minutes. But such an opinion could be written only by one who has read 100 law books. If the lawyer had not previously read those books, but should keep a client waiting until he could read them with care, there would be fewer complaints that fees of this kind are not earned. We are told that perseverance built the pyramids on Egypt's plains, erected the gorgeous temple at Jerusalem, enclosed in adamant the Chinese Empire, scaled the stormy cloud-capped Alps, opened a highway through the watery wilderness of the Atlantic, leveled the forests of the New World, and reared in its stead a community of states and nations. Perseverance has wrought from the marble block the exquisite creations of genius, painted on canvas the gorgeous mimicry of nature, and engraved on a metallic surface the viewless substance of the shadow. Perseverance has put in motion millions of spindles, winged as many flying shuttles, harnessed thousands of iron steeds to as many freighted cars, and sent them flying from town to town and nation to nation, tunneled mountains of granite, and annihilated space with the lightning's speed. Perseverance has whitened the waters of the world with the sails of 100 nations, navigated every sea, and explored every land. Perseverance has reduced nature in her 1,000 forms to as many sciences, taught her laws, prophesied her future movements, measured her untrodden spaces, counted her myriad hosts of worlds, and computed their distances, dimensions, and velocities. Whoever is resolved to excel in painting, or indeed in any other art, said Reynolds, must bring all his mind to bear upon that one object from the moment that he rises till he goes to bed. If you work hard 2 weeks without selling a book, wrote a publisher to an agent, you will make a success of it. Know thy work and do it, said Carlyle, and work at it like a Hercules. One monster there is in the world, and